to the Burundi crisis now. The European Union has welcomed the African Union's push for high-level talks. The AU adopted the mediation plan this past weekend after shelving a proposal to send in peacekeepers to quell the violence. CCTV's Elena Casas reports from Brussels.
The European Union says it supported an African solution to this crisis, with peace efforts led by the African Union from the beginning, and the government of Burundi must now return to the dialogue table and cooperate genuinely with peace efforts. The EU says any delegation led by high-level African leaders to Burundi is welcome, and it's willing to support any mediation efforts. At least 400 people have been killed and 200,000 have fled their homes since the political crisis began when President Pierre Nkurunziza decided to run for a third term 10 months ago. The EU says it continues to receive reports of human rights violations, and more observers must be deployed in the country to investigate them as soon as possible. The European Union pulled its own non-essential personnel out of Bujumbura in November, and both Belgium and France say its embassy staff have received threats and they're advising their citizens to avoid the country. Elena Casas, CCTV, Brussels.
So let's discuss this issue further. Daniel Branches is live for us in Washington. Daniel, how has the African Union mediation plan been received in the US and by the United Nations Security Council?
Well, as yet, we haven't had an official reaction from the US government, although I've requested that. But I would imagine that there is deep disappointment about the scenarios that are playing out at the moment in Burundi. I don't think privately any of these officials will think that they are majorly surprised that the African Union has not decided to go ahead and impose a force on Burundi. But at the same time, there is mounting concern about the reports that we're getting from some of these groups about the level of human rights abuses, mass killings and the like. And so I expect later in the day that the State Department will put out a statement of some kind, making comments to the effect that they are still deeply concerned, that they would like to see pressure increased on the Burundian government to allow in observers, certainly human rights observers and others, in order to try to stabilize the situation and repeat those demands really that the government of Burundi and the opposition engage in dialogue and try to reach a peaceful resolution.
So going forward, what sort of support is likely to come from the UN Security Council, given that its recent mission in Burundi hit a dead end?
Well, I think that there are players in the UN Security Council, particularly the French and also the Ambassador Samantha Power, who has, during her career, been deeply concerned about the potential for mass human rights abuses. And so, given those, agenda items, it's likely that they will take existing data about human rights abuses that have been taking place, bring them to the Security Council at some point. We don't know when, because the agenda has already been set. But certainly I think they will be pressing for this to be seen once again, because clearly they see some leverage in continuing to apply political pressure. Yes, they realize that the American government itself has very limited ability to influence the Burundian players on the ground. But I think that they will be trying to have a concerted diplomatic effort to try to maintain the ability to have some leverage with human rights observers, members of the UN, members of the AU, to be able to access areas of concern where violence has taken place. And then, as I say, try to push these parties further forward. But I can tell you today here in Washington, there is a mood of pessimism, a mood of concern, deep concern that this crisis could spiral out of control even more.
And understandably so. Daniel Branches live for us there in Washington. Thank you.